Peace, family, and welcome to another episode of Sins of the Father. I'm your host, Ani IL. I want to thank you again for tapping in and, just let me be a part of your journey as well as me allowing you to be a part of mine. I thank you for any of the comments that have been shared. I thank you for the likes, the subscribers. I want you to know I fully and totally appreciate the love, the support, and even the criticism. It helps me, to kind of be able to be vulnerable and express myself, and at the same time understand that this is the reality of the world that we're in, right? Things just happen this way. So let me just jump right in. It's been a really, really interesting week, and let me not dumb it down by calling it just interesting. It's been a tough week. I've had to face some things that highlight what this whole journey is about in terms of understanding the traumas and the issues that we are faced with when we don't confront our past traumas. So just to give you a little thing, this week has just been really, really crazy in terms of just finding myself in unnecessary battles with, for one, the biggest conflict, which is within me, uncertainty, indecisiveness, things of that nature. I think we've discussed on previous episodes some of the triggers that cause those kinds of insecurities, right? Neglect, abandonment, things of that nature. And when those things are not addressed and not fully opened up and even just examined from a higher point, from a spiritual point, from a methodical point, then we leave ourselves vulnerable to those emotional battles that we have, right? So, in me working throughout the week, kind of having meetings with different people and feeling anxiety over things not moving the way that I want them to. And I know that sounds kind of normal, but the level of anxiety that I felt, the level of anger, the level of disappointment, the level of challenge, the level of, even I could say, mistrust is got to be directly correlated to something, because the people have given me no reason not to trust them. They really haven't, just in all honesty. They haven't really given me a reason not to trust them. So therefore that mistrust has to be something that is within me. And I'm figuring out, how do I combat that? How do I deal with that in a healthy way? How do I deal with that emotional fluctuation, so to speak, in a positive way, with understanding behind it, with empathy behind it, with grace behind it? And I found that it has to be that I am willing to accept correction. I have been long in this state of knowing things. I think that sometimes we can intellectualize our feelings so much that they no longer hold the same meaning, the same punch, or the same validity, because we're intellectualizing them so much that we don't deal with them on that emotional, on that one-to-one level, or on that open dialogue with self level, right? I think a lot of these conversations I've been having with myself have allowed me to tap into that flaw that I have. That flaw that everything needs to be logical and work its way out in certain ways that I perceive they should, when that's really not the case. So I had an issue where, I was dealing with someone who's very close to me, and they were trying to express certain feelings. and I couldn't really see how they were coming up with those feelings. So I challenged those feelings with logic, because that's what I've used to protect my own insecurity and my own vulnerabilities. You know? And I think that I don't know how healthy that is. I don't know how productive that is at this point to do that. Because if I'm not getting the results by doing those things, then somehow or another there has to be another way. There has to be another option for me to find an answer and to find the level emotional state where I can think clearly and not be aroused or be agitated by things that I perceive to be direct insults or plights or direct attacks on me or on what I'm talking about or what I'm doing, and more of it's just this person's situation, and respecting that this person may actually have emotional boundaries or emotional barriers or emotional limitations to what they can accept or express. And I have to give grace to those people in order for me to be in more control of my empathy, because that's part of my power. You know, empathy being a power that we have to soothe other individuals and to bring compassion and acknowledgement to another's plight. In my journey of wanting to become and be this type of a person, I'm trying to correlate that to, well, what did I miss? You know, I'm trying to fix these things. So what did I miss? What did I miss? You know, where was I misunderstood, or where did I misunderstand? So let's try to solve this problem together. I'm thinking that my feelings of feeling attacked come from an insecurity of something that I didn't feel protected when I was younger. I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel heard. And somewhere in that translates down the line to me not allowing space for someone to genuinely open up to me, because I'm always on defense. I'm always trying to defend my position as being right, as opposed to just being my position. And I know that it's caused difficulty in some of these relationships. And I want that to stop. I want that to stop. You know, feeling disappointed in people and disappointment leading to resentment, with resentment being a combination of anger, sadness, and disappointment is kind of what resentment is, right? And I realized that I am exhibiting all of the traits that cause me to not be in my strongest state, in my wellness, in my power position, my emotional, having authority over my emotions. And I've been really trying to figure out, how do I balance that? You know, what is necessary to balance that? What trauma should I be looking at or approaching or revisiting to try to understand where that disconnect is coming from? And I want to just dive deeper into what that means, because it's really been a challenge for me, especially being in business and dealing with so many different individuals at different levels of maturity and compassion, that I'm always feeling like there is a battle awaiting me that I have to fight. And I know that that's not healthy. I know that it's not. And sometimes I've said to myself, I have to remove myself from environments that make me feel that way. But moving from one environment to another doesn't change the lack of emotional control, the lack of emotional awareness. So I can move my environment, but then what happens when I'm in another environment and the same thing happens? Then the triggers are still there. I haven't worked on the triggers. So it's been challenging for me to try to work on these triggers, especially now that I care. It's been years that I didn't really care, right? I would just do what I wanted to do and say what I wanted to say, and my word was the law for me. And I stood on that, I stood on that with no give, no leeway for a possibility of being wrong. So I was proven wrong because some of the things that I thought actually turned out to not be what that person meant. And then not even because I brought it up or even said it, but in another during the conversation or during a subsequent conversation, it came up that they answered the question that I was asking myself. The battle that I was having internally wasn't even real. Now just listen to that. The battle that I was having internally wasn't even real. I literally was making these things up in my head as some form of protection against being hurt. But it wasn't even real. It wasn't there. So I literally caused myself a level of anxiety, no sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, waking up at 3 a.m, like, I got to handle this in the morning. I got to talk about this, and realizing now that it wasn't even real. I gave myself a level of anxiety for absolutely no reason. There was nothing there. So had I approached that same situation with love, with open-mindedness, with a willingness to listen and hear what was being said on an intimate level, I was, stopping myself, stopping my own growth, stopping my own blessing almost, right? Because those deals or those conversations could have hindered the deal or made the deal go lopsided. And I want to grow out of that. Yeah, it's crazy to me as I'm looking at myself in this camera and I'm saying to myself, man, you're a grown ass man and you want to grow now? And the answer is yes. I'm a grown ass man and want to grow now. I want to grow now. I want to be better. I want to be healthier, because I feel like as a person who has influence over others, I want my influence to come from a place of compassion and healing, and not a place of aggression and dismissiveness, because then I am perpetuating a cycle that leads to my inevitable unhappiness and depression and sadness. And by no means am I depressed. So I don't want to play with that word, because I believe there are people that are depressed, and I want to honor and respect those people who feel that. I'm not depressed, but I feel a sadness sometimes because I'm always challenging or worry or thinking that there's a challenge that I got to answer to, when I could just be. Like, what is stopping me from just being? What is stopping me from just being content with things as they are, and allowing things to play out based on the goodness that is in me? Allowing things to play out based on what I know that I'm leading with my heart and with truth and with optimism and abundance and love and respect. The only thing that should come back should be And you know what? Let me stop there, because I don't think that there should be an expectation of what should come back, right? I think that the expectation, the other side of expectation, is always disappointment, right? You can't, anytime you expect anything, there's a two sides to the same coin is disappointment. So in that, then I have to say to myself, then I can't expect an outcome. I can only expect that I give the best part of me, and know that because of that, the laws of the universe dictate that certain things have to happen. Maybe not in the time frame that I want them to, but in the time frame, if that makes sense. They have to happen because I'm abiding by the laws of reciprocity. If I give grace, somehow or another grace has to be returned. Whether it's by this person or that person, it has to come back, because that's how I let it out. That's how I gave it out. That's how I responded, or that's how I opened up, or that's how I moved in that particular situation. So in looking at these things, I'm saying to myself, I really noticed that how many of my behaviors that over the years have gotten me either into issues or isolated me from being in healthy, loving relationships, or healthy, loving, even friendships, is some of these unresolved issues with myself, because they're not with another individual, because you never really know what another individual is feeling and really going through unless they fully express and are totally articulate in how they're feeling, right? We make these things up. We say this is what it is, this is what it's not. And sometimes it's just really just not the case. It's just really just not the case. And I want to do better and get better. And I want answers. So again, I ask, as I always do, please, if anybody in the comments have had the opportunity to evaluate and take a look at their own issues and their own emotional responses to things, what are some of the things that you've seen cause for you to feel guarded, feel that you have to defend every point and not give leeway on anything because you feel like you're giving up ground as if you're being attacked? And we don't want to feel attacked ever, but 9 times out of 10, I would say that you're really probably not being attacked. It's really probably something internal. Now, you know when you're being outwardly attacked. You kind of know when you're being outwardly treated indifferently or wrong or whatever the case is. You know when that's happening. But when you have to guess it and try, then at that point in time, I think that maybe we should pull back and just say, hey, let me evaluate my feelings at this particular point. It's not about controlling the emotion, it's controlling the response to the emotion, because the emotions are healthy. The emotions are there for the purpose of regulating certain things and giving you warning signs and allowing you to understand and interpret the environment around you, right? But so you want to control your response to the emotion, not the emotion. You want to take in the emotion, receive it, and maybe sit in it for a minute. Maybe not respond immediately. Maybe not respond defensively. I guess when you're wounded and you're walking around wounded, even the wind could irritate a wound, right? Something as innocent and as natural and as needed and necessary and a part of living as the wind can irritate a wound. So if you don't heal that wound, then it's exposed to all of the elements, all of the personalities and fluctuations of everything that you're going to encounter or everything that you're going to come into proximity to, that it can do that. And I'm just realizing that I don't want it to do that anymore. I want to be better, you know? As being a man who wants to master himself, which is my purpose. I don't know if I've stated that before on the podcast, but my purpose is to master myself as best I can. And I know that that's a lifelong journey. I know that that's a lifelong process, but every journey starts with the first step, right? So in this long process that I have been on and continue to be on, I want to be more self-aware of why am I reacting that way? What is my temperament? Am I reserving myself or reserving judgment for another time when I'm not in an emotional state? Right? That's important. Am I reserving my response for a time when I have had the appropriate amount of time to exercise understanding over the emotions that are about to trigger me? Sometimes, I know things happen in the moment, bam, and you gotta react. Something happens and you feel like, you gotta respond to it immediately. I noticed that, like, especially when I was around brothers in the industry, nobody takes anything. Like, you gotta respond to that immediately. Like, you can't give anybody leeway because you don't know who's trying to check you, who's trying to challenge you, who's trying to sun you, who's trying to, muscle you a little bit. And some of those things carry over, right? Some of those things carry over. And I don't want that to be how I live out the remainder of my life. I don't want that to be how I react or how I interact with my children, how I interact with people who I know genuinely love me. But because I haven't dealt with my issues, I'm responding to them as I would an enemy combatant in the field. How could that be healthy? Pushing people away, or even just challenging people when there's really nothing to challenge. When there's really nothing to challenge, I've created this thing, and I have to now sit with it and live with it with pie on my face when I realized that I was totally in the wrong, and it wasn't real from the beginning. Right? It wasn't real from the beginning. I want to be better than that. I want us to be better than that. I want everybody who ever listens to one of these podcasts to say to themselves, I want to be better than that. I want to grow out of that insecurity. I want to grow out of that space. I want to grow out of that feeling of needing to always be war ready. Now, I know it's going to be some brothers who are still in their war mode who are going to say, man, I'm always war ready. I'm always ready to go. I understand that, I understand. I've been there. I might still even be there at times, I'm always in that. But I know that level of anxiety is not peace. It's not peace. It's not conducive to peace. It's conducive to war. It's conducive to confrontation and conflict. And in growing, at some point, we want to move into a state of peace. At least that's where I'm at. I know, like I said, there's going to be people on this who are going to watch this podcast who are going to be in different stages of their life. They're going to be at different stages of their maturity. And they're going to feel like I'm at war. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm on go time all the way. At this point in time in my life, I want peace. I've been at war the majority of my life. Like, literally, the majority of my life I've been at war. From war with parents, and I battle with my mom and my father. I battle with them, on a daily basis sometimes, just anything I could find that gave me a voice once I reached of age to talk and speak back. I used it respectfully. Never cursed at my mother, maybe once. I think I cursed at my mother, and I think that was the time when I finally I couldn't deal with the feelings that I was getting. I couldn't deal with it any longer. It became too much. And I ain't curse her out. I just cursed, stop fucking, blah, 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 and that type of thing. But it was the first time and only time, because I apologized after that. But just, this is what I had to come to the point of saying I've been at war for a very long time. Like, really, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. And, habits are, hard to break. But I'm ready. I'm ready. And I hope that anyone listening who has thought about wanting to find peace realizes that peace is to be had. Peace is to be had. There is no reason that we remain in a state of conflict at all times. There's no reason to it. Life is about harmony, harmony, and balance. And when I say balance, let's be clear on what balance is. Balance is never a stagnation of just that and everything being equal. Like, that's not balance. Balance is movement. Balance is fluctuation. Balance is sometimes good, sometimes bad, and knowing when those things matter and when those things are useful or when those things are detrimental to your objective. So I believe in this point in time in my life, I want to be at balance. I want to be in harmony with the two sides of me, which is good and bad. Doesn't make sense to believe that I'm supposed to only be good. There's a reason for aggression. There's a reason for fight. It's a reason for standing it's a reason for those things. It's a reason for that, being able to fight and defend yourself. It's a reason for being angry. That's an emotion. Like I said, it's not for me to control that emotion. It's for me to control how I react to that emotion. Because just because I feel angry doesn't mean I have to react angrily. Because sometimes throwing fuel on the fire burns the whole house down. Right? As opposed to throwing something else on it, right? As opposed to extinguishing the fire, the anger. So I want to learn how to control my reaction to my emotions. Because like I said, this was a tough week for me, really. And that's probably why, y'all guys wouldn't know it, but I haven't filmed in a few days because it's just been a emotional roller coaster. And it's so weird because I felt like I was in such a great space. I was feeling happy and confident, and I was just faced with perceived conflicts. Because they really weren't. They actually showed themselves out to just be things that I just wanted to happen in my time, but it just happens in time. We kind of think sometimes that we have a monopoly on time, that things are supposed to happen when we expect them to happen. I don't want that to be a catalyst for negative behavior, negative confrontations, negative conflicts. I want that to be an opportunity for growth, opportunity for insightfulness, opportunity for empathy, an opportunity for compassion and grace. Because I find that when I deal with people with grace and compassion, I always get, I don't say always, I never want to use absolutes, right? So most times I receive a positive response. I try, we all do it, talk in absolutes sometimes and use those kind of words. But because I want to be able to talk frankly with you guys, and because I want you guys to understand and have context around how I'm speaking, I want to make sure that I don't use words that that are not necessary or I shouldn't be using. I want to make sure that I'm correcting myself. As a evolving human being, then I have to learn to correct myself. And I'm attaching a lot of that correction to going to the root. Because I could keep cutting off the leaves, right? I could keep cutting off the leaves, but the tree remains because it's deeply rooted. So I could think I'm doing this and I'm helping and I'm getting better and I'm not. But if I'm not dealing with the root cause, then I'm never going to be able to heal out of it. I could put Band-Aids on it, but then it goes back to that saying of if the wound is open, even something that has no desire or intent of causing me pain can cause me pain because I haven't healed the wound. So anything that touches it, you got a wound and the pants leg touching you hurt. The water when you take a shower, this shit hurt. You putting on your underwears in there, it scrapes your leg and it hurts. You know what I mean? You're doing exercise in the gym and you do something and it hurts. It's like, I don't want my wounds to be so exposed that every single time I'm doing something, I got to worry about hurting. Like, come on, who wants to continue to live in that space? So we're going to figure out a solution. We're going to figure out some solutions. And I think one of the solutions is to take a step back in those moments and give yourself time to reflect. Give yourself time to evaluate that emotion. Give yourself time to react. I was always told one of the most powerful words in the English language was no. And I'm going to say no to quick responses. I'm going to challenge myself to stop, think, feel, then express, as opposed to feel and express. Because I think I'm skipping a major piece that could help me. A major point that may be able to enlighten myself and the other party. Now, sometimes you do gotta, say something. Sometimes you do gotta respond to something. You'll know when those times are. I think I will. I'll know when those times are. I at least try to be cognizant of when those situations arise and address them accordingly. But obviously, I've been missing the mark, which is why I feel this week has been so hard. And I want to have a better week. I want to have a better day tomorrow. Today is the election day. Today is election day, so today is November 4th or something. So I want to, and it's been so many emotions, heightened people. One of my brothers who, again, I'm not going to talk about who he's voting for. It doesn't really matter. But he felt that, he had to be reactive because he thought that there was going to be a challenge to his particular political leanings. And I know that comes from his probably unanswered or things that he feels he always has to defend himself. So how do we look at these things now? How do we address these things? How do we come to a point of understanding, of full awareness? And I think really, as I keep saying it, the only things I could think of is that we take the time to stop and evaluate, slow things down, slow the game down, settle into the experience, be okay with the moment, let that emotion resonate. Let it do what it does. Let it signal what it's supposed to signal. That emotion is hitting you for a reason. There's a reason why certain emotions actually have physical attributes in the body, because it's supposed to make you feel like something. But if you don't sit with the feeling, how do you really know what that emotion was trying to really tell you? So just some thoughts I wanted to share. I always appreciate any comments. I'm really looking for you guys to give me comments and feedback. Like, I really want you guys to interact and express your agreement, disagreement, critique, or even go in a little bit deeper. You may have more understanding of certain things than I do, and I would love to hear it, because I think that communication and dialogue is a pathway to healing and health. So on this journey, I say, communicate with me and allow me to communicate with you. Don't close me off when I have something that I say that's different from what you believe. Open that up and let's have a dialogue. let's have a dialogue. I'm really looking forward to that, family. And I appreciate, like I said again, the love, the comments, the responses, even the people who hit me privately on text message and tell me, yo, what you said was real powerful, and what you said, I want to tell you I love you. Like, I've had a friend of mine reach out to me recently and just say, yo, I love you, bro. Like, yo, I understand, I understand some of them challenges, man. And I want you to know, you're not alone. And I really appreciated that. And I don't know if he knew how much it meant to me to receive that, to really fully, somebody to get where I'm at. Like, I think we all want to be heard and understood and appreciated. So let's appreciate each other. Let's appreciate each other's strengths and weaknesses, and work with each other to be better. Because we're moving into a very decisive time in history right now. We're moving into a very monumentous time in history right now. And I think we're going to need a lot more compassion and empathy with each other in order to survive this. I really honestly believe that we're going to need a lot more caring and understanding to survive what we are going up against. And I want to be a vanguard of that. I want to be the epitome of that. Like, I don't want to be someone that is is reactionary all the time. I don't want to be the one that perpetuates conflict and war. I want to be one that you find peace when you talk to me, and when I talk to somebody, that we can sit down and resolve issues in a mature, healthy way. And part of that has to do with understanding those inner voices that come from somewhere that I think are really deeply rooted in how we have been trained to respond. And not only how we have been trained, how we have not been taught to respond more healthily. Right? So I appreciate you, family. Love always. Always love. Man, I love each and every one of you that tap in with me and allow me to express myself and listen to me and critique and give me feedback. And like I said, I want to grow together. So I appreciate you. Love, peace. Be safe out there, family, and we'll meet again soon. Peace.